नमस्कार, हमारे इस प्रोग्राम में आपका स्वागत है। किसी ने खूब कहा है, बीइंग चैलेंज्ड इन लाइफ इज़ इनेविटेबल, बीइंग डिफीटेड इज़ ऑप्शनल। और यही खासियत है हमारी आज की मेहमान की। ज़िंदगी ने उनके सामने बहुत सी चुनौतियाँ रखी, लेकिन उन्होंने कभी भी हार नहीं मानी। उनकी ज़िंदगी हमें हैरान भी करती है और प्रेरित भी करती है। वी आर डिलाइटेड टू हैव ऑन आवर प्रोग्राम श्रीमती आशा चावला। आशा जी, प्रोग्राम में आपका स्वागत है।
शुक्रिया।
You know, your entire life has been so many ups and downs, and yet you have encapsulated the entire life in such a small book called Destiny.
In fact, I may have had lots of ups and downs, but I never noticed them when I had them. I just sailed through them.
Yeah.
क्योंकि ये था सामने जो है वो करना है।
शायद इसी वजह से आपने इस किताब का नाम भी डेस्टिनी रखा।
Destiny was the first word that came to my mind.
अच्छा।
And I said I'll go with it. It fits in with everything.
Absolutely, it does. Asha ji, let's start with talking about your family, your parents.
Yes.
आपके पिता भी एक जाने माने फ्रीडम फाइटर थे।
जी.
And he was a part of the legislature in Punjab.
Yeah, he had been a speaker of the Punjab Assembly.
Yeah.
And then he was also a minister in a few different governments.
Mm-hmm.
But more than everything else, he was just a worker. He loved the country. He did everything for it, with position or without position.
And tell me a little bit, because you grew through that phase when he was fighting for India's freedom. वो कैसा वक्त था आप लोगों के लिए?
जो उसका थोड़ा बहुत मुझे याद है वो ऐसे था कि बचपन में हम छोटे थे, लाहौर में रहते थे और हर वक्त वहाँ पर पुलिस का पहरा रहता था।
अच्छा।
बाहर, because they were always because he was a revolutionary. So he was always on the hit list. The house used to be surrounded by them to find if there was who was coming, who was going.
Achha.
And they would even talk to us in a very friendly way and try to extract as much they could out of us. And I recall, because we used to visit Dad in the jail sometimes, at one stage he was unwell and he was hospitalized. So the family couldn't go, but the children were allowed to see him.
And how old were you then? Do you remember?
I could vaguely say about 6 or 7.
Okay.
And Dad used to save his goodies for us.
अच्छा।
कि बच्चे आएंगे तो उनको दूंगा. But if you don't ask me much about that, because it gets me very emotional.
I can quite imagine. But he always inspired you, ना?
He did.
उन्हीं की सीख ने आपको आगे जाकर एक संबल दिया. It is what carried you through life, isn't it?
It did. उनका जीवन ही हमारी शिक्षा थी.
उनकी ज़िंदगी से जो आपको इंस्पिरेशन मिली है, उसने आगे जाकर आपको, जब आपकी ज़िंदगी की मुश्किलें थी उसमें आपको हेल्प किया. एंड हमेशा वो आपकी खुशी में खुश रहते थे.
वो कहते थे मेरे बच्चे बुज़दिल नहीं होंगे.
हाँ.
उन्हें बहादुर होना है.
हाँ.
और हमें याद है कि बचपन में हम वहाँ पर एक कंपनी बाग था मसूरी में, वहाँ झूला झूलते थे. तो झूला झूलते वक्त मेरी जो झूला था वो ऊपर टंग गया. मैं बहुत ऊंची चढ़ा रही थी और मैं वहीं लटक गई. सो आई जंप डाउन. तो आसपास एक दो लोग खड़े थे. वो कहने लगे शाबाश बेटा, बड़ी बहादुर बच्ची हो. किसकी बेटी हो? तो हमने नाम ले दिया पापा जी का कि जी मैं प्रबोध चंद्र की बेटी. अरे बहादुर बाप की बहादुर बेटी.
कितनी खूबसूरत बात है.
सो कुछ दिमाग में ऐसी चीज़ें हैं जो घर कर जाती हैं और निकाले भी नहीं निकलती.
और सबसे बड़ा जो उनका एक सपना था कि आप एजुकेशन की तरफ जाएं, मेडिसिन की तरफ जाएं.
बचपन में सब कहते थे कि मैं या फौज में जाऊं.
हाँ.
और या डॉक्टर बनूं.
हाँ.
लेकिन मैं दोनों में से कुछ भी नहीं बनी क्योंकि जल्दी शादी कर ली.
हाँ.
और बस फिर घर गृहस्थी, बाल बच्चे.
That was your first act of defiance.
It was not so much a defiance because the parents were very liberal.
अच्छा.
And they never objected to very much. कहते हैं मेरे बच्चों की जो इच्छा है वो करें. लेकिन फिर भी कहते थे बेटा पढ़ लेते तो अच्छा था. तो उस उम्र में पता तो होता नहीं शादी क्या होती है. एक बार इंसान चल पड़ता है रास्ते पे तो फिर पीछे मुड़ के नहीं देखता.
जी.
तो शादी हो गई. थोड़ी कंजर्वेटिव फैमिली थी, उसमें एडजस्ट करना बहुत मुश्किल था, लेकिन किया क्योंकि वापसी का कोई रास्ता नहीं था.
और उसमें भी आपकी फैमिली ने इस तरह से सपोर्ट किया कि इफ़ दिस इज़ द डिसीजन यू टेकन देन यू हैव टू स्टिक बाय इट.
मम्मी को रंजिश थी लेकिन पापा जी कभी कुछ नहीं कहते थे. वो कहते ठीक है बेटा जो किया ठीक है, उन्हें पसंद था, मेरे हस्बैंड को पसंद करते थे, कहते थे ठीक है, पढ़ा लिखा लड़का है, देखने में अच्छा है, और क्या चाहिए।
और क्या चाहिए।
कभी पैसा वैसा तो दिमाग में था ही नहीं, कि अमीरी या गरीबी उस वक़्त, हमारे वक़्त में तो बल्कि ज़्यादा पैसे की तरफ तो जो देना तो बुरा समझते थे।
बिल्कुल, ख़ास तौर पे जब इंडिपेंडेंस के बाद का जो समय था, एक नया इंडिया बन रहा था, तो उसमें हर कोई कोशिश ये कर रहा था, इट वाज दैट आइडियलिज्म कि यू कंट्रीब्यूट टुवर्ड्स सोसाइटी एंड अपने बारे में कम सोचें, एंड एज यू सेड
आइडियलिज्म तो बहुत था
जी।
आइडियलिज्म तो बहुत था, खाली मेरे पिताजी की तरफ से ही नहीं, मेरे नाना भी फ्रीडम फाइटर थे, और वो उस वक्त लाला लाजपत राय के साथ के थे।
अच्छा।
उनको भी 10-11 साल की जेल हुई।
अच्छा।
तो हमारी 2-3 मौसियाँ नज़रबंदी में पैदा हुई थी। तो इट इज़ अ लॉन्ग लाइनेज ऑफ people who
freedom fighters,
who worked towards the independence of the country.
Suddenly, soon after your marriage, after you had your 2 children, आपकी लाइफ ने एक अजीब किस्म का टर्न ले लिया था।
टर्न ये था कि स्ट्रगल थी
जी,
और यहाँ पर उस वक़्त हालात तो बड़े ख़राब थे इंडिया में, कोई अपॉर्चुनिटी नहीं थी, जो आज की अपॉर्चुनिटी हमारे वक़्त में नहीं थी
जी।
और शादीशुदा लड़कियों को कुछ करने भी नहीं देता था कि घर से बाहर नहीं जाना। तो इवेंचुअली माई हस्बैंड ऑल्सो गॉट अ बिट फेड अप एंड ही गॉट द अपॉर्चुनिटी टू गो अब्रॉड। तो वो चले गए कि मैं देखता हूँ, आई ट्राई माई हैंड एल्सवेयर। सो वी बिकेम इकोनॉमिक माइग्रेंट्स।
What is interesting is why he chose Ireland of all places.
He didn't choose it. It happened. In fact, we had some very old friends. He was posted in Dublin, and they had come and stayed with me in Delhi, and I presented them with some of my hand-painted cushion covers. So when they went there, they put them in their sitting room, and they matched the greenery of Ireland. And somehow they remembered every time, said, and they wrote to me that you need to come to this place. This place is calling you. And maybe it was. And so my husband went ahead, 6 months ahead, and to get something started there, export business or something. But it took longer than I had expected. So I felt I should pack my bags and also follow. And I just went with my 2 children.
In fact, the way you've described that incident in your book is very interesting. He wasn't really informed that you were planning to come, and he had not really said, मैं तैयार हूँ, अब आप लोग आ जाओ।
नहीं, उनकी कोई तैयारी नहीं थी।
हाँ।
वो कहते थे मैं कहाँ संभालूंगा बच्चों को। लेकिन जब पहुँच गए तो फिर
चॉइस नहीं थी,
कोई चॉइस नहीं थी। एंड देन वी रेंटेड अ बेसमेंट फ्लैट देयर। उस वक़्त वहाँ पर आसानी से किराए पे घर नहीं देते थे लोग, ख़ास करके इंडियंस को। वो समझते थे कि इनकी जो करीज़ हैं वो उनकी खुशबू उन्हें पसंद नहीं थी। दे आर बेटर ऑफ विद देयर बॉइल्ड एंड बेकन एंड चीज़ वट एवर।
टेस्टलेस फूड।
It's not so tasteless, but it doesn't smell the same as Indian food. And they were very prone to all that. तो एक तो ये थी कंडीशन, दूसरी बच्चों के साथ नहीं देते थे। So we had make do with whatever we got. It was a basement flat जिसमें रोशनी तो आती नहीं थी।
डैम्प होता होगा।
दोनों चीज़ें थी, डैम्प भी था, डल भी था, और even though they had brightened it up with a very new carpet, लेकिन उसकी फ्लफ इतनी निकलती थी कि हर कपड़े के ऊपर लग जाती थी। So it was a kind of a cheap this thing. This is how the accommodation then was as compared to now. अब तो हर एक चीज़ जो है is so beautifully made that you forget all those days.
हम आपकी ज़िंदगी की और बात करेंगे, लेकिन उससे पहले हमारे साथ एक मेहमान जुड़ रहे हैं
जी,
उनसे बात करते हैं और सुनते हैं वो आपके बारे में क्या कहना चाह रहे हैं। तो आइए मिलते हैं।
इकबाल साहब ने क्या खूब कहा है, खुद ही को कर बुलंद इतना कि हर तकदीर से पहले खुदा बंदे से पूछे बता तेरी रजा क्या है। Asha ji's book Destiny is a story of unbelievable struggle and triumph in a foreign land. The book highlights how events are destined to be and how must one move with the flow and make the best out of life. Asha ji has fought all battles in life bravely and with dignity. Her perseverance and desire to never give up irrespective of tough circumstances, is something to learn from. I truly admire her courage, compassion, hard work and dedication. शफक के रंग निकलने के बाद आई है, ये शाम धूप में चलने के बाद आई है, ये रोशनी जो तेरे कमरे में है, शमा का जिस्म पिघलने के बाद आई है.
ज़िंदगी के साथ जो लोग रहे हैं, जब वो इस तरह से तारीफ़ करते हैं और आपकी जर्नी को अप्रिशिएट करते हैं तो कैसा लगता है?
अच्छा लगता है, अच्छी चीज़ तो अच्छी लगेगी. अच्छा लगता है. और ये किताब ने बहुतों को भावुक कर दिया.
बिल्कुल.
जो कि मैं नहीं समझती थी कि मैंने भावुक बनाई है किताब, लेकिन दे वर आई हैव गॉट मोर recognition from my friends and people I know and the relatives who have read the book. They said, हमें तो तुम्हारी ये ज़िंदगी का पता ही नहीं था. तो मैंने कहा ये भी हमारी ही ज़िंदगी थी.
और वो भी ट्रेडिशनल अपब्रिंगिंग के अपने साथ जो गलत हो रहा है, जो चैलेंजेस हैं, उसके बारे में बात नहीं करते हैं.
हर वक्त अपने आप को हर तरह से ठीक ही दिखाना.
हाँ.
हमारी उस वक्त की सभ्यता थी
जी.
कि भाई नहीं तो आप अगलों की आंखों में गिर जाओगे.
हाँ.
तो आदमी अपने दिल की बात नहीं कह पाता था. कोई समझ ले तो समझ ले.
हाँ.
और समझता कोई नहीं. इसीलिए द बुक वॉज वेरी cathartic. It brought out what I didn't intend to bring out.
Why did you decide to write the book?
In fact, the life in Ireland was so different and so eventful in many ways that I thought I have to write it down. And I used to scribble a few words and then throw them away and never bothered with it. Finally, when I was 80, I said, if not now, then never. And then I hurriedly started jotting down whatever came to my mind. I mean, if I had written the whole story, the book would have been 4 times what it is now.
Probably you should.
Yes, I am planning to write another one. Everybody says write a sequel. I don't know if it is a sequel, but it wouldn't be out of place to tell now that after living there for that many years, well over 50 years, I decided to come back home. And even though I used to come every year, but especially after I had wound up my business, I said I must go to, after my husband passed away, I said to myself, what is my aim now? And I said I have to take up something different. And I came here, and my mother-in-law had left a place in Uttarakhand in Rishikesh. She always wanted me to look after it. So I said, I'll do that. That's one of my duties. And then I bought a piece of land up in Tiri Garhwal.
Achha.
And decided to build up something there, which was purely accidental, but I just did it. And I went to make a 2-bedroom cottage, and I ended up making a 8-bedroom house. And which is now much appreciated. So that became another journey and another kind of an art form, because I didn't know how to construct or anything about construction, and it was very hard to get any experts there to make what they had to. So I'd just get the stuff, cement and bricks and everything, and they came by the trucks and were loaded on the donkeys to bring up to where the land was. And brick by brick we built it. And today it is, I mean, I'm very proud of that place.
देखा जाए तो आपकी ज़िंदगी की हर किस्सा ऐसा ही है. Things have come to you instinctively. आपको एक जैसे mental picture आ गई उस चीज़ की, और फिर आपने उसको brick by brick build किया. Right from the handicrafts, Shri, that you started in
Absolutely,
Dublin.
Absolutely. You've got it right on the point. And I didn't think I was able for all those things, but I just did them. And when you get started, then you can't just leave it in between.
Then destiny takes you forth.
Destiny. There is always a guiding hand somewhere. And I have great faith in God. And I know somewhere along the line you are guided. Each step that you take has been guided by somebody.
Ireland को कहते हैं Emerald Isle. It's
जी.
so beautiful and so green, or that's what we hear.
बहुत हरा भरा है.
हाँ.
बहुत अच्छा है.
लेकिन you also experienced a lot of the greys when you were in Dublin.
There is a very big grey area, especially for people like us who have come from a warm country, a colorful country. There you have to tone down your dress sense, everything. Couldn't wear a sari too long. I used to wear a sari in the beginning. It was much admired, and everybody thought there people wear long dress only when they're going for a wedding, and the young children and all. But I was very welcomed by, whether I was boarding a bus or doing anything, everybody came out to help me.
And but that was helping out of curiosity, or is
very much out of curiosity? And we were the earlier migrants.
Right.
Ireland was not there were not that many immigrants there then.
Yeah.
So they were not familiar with the Indian culture, except that it's a hot country. And they said,
hot country with hot curry.
Yes, everything is hot there. So they used to ask me, what brought you to this God-forsaken country? Because it was so cold. And it's now when the bones really start breaking that you feel the cold. At that time we didn't feel the cold.
In fact, in your book you mentioned this conversation with your solicitor in Dublin, who said,
he was the one who said there was an untoward incident, and my husband was
one
assaulted.
of many, in fact.
Yes, but this was the very early one.
Yeah.
My husband was assaulted, and when I came to look him up at lunchtime, he wasn't there, and everything was strewn all over the place. I didn't know what happened.
This was in your store?
That was in the shop we had opened. We had a partner who didn't want us there.
Achha.
And he was nasty to my husband. And then this lady from across the road, a news agent, she came and she said, oh, that Bowsy fellow, he assaulted your husband. Oh. And I didn't know what to do. My daughter was in the pram, and they said, oh, they have taken him to the hospital. I didn't even know where the hospital was. So I just walked a certain distance, and I saw two ladies coming. Their color was like ours, but the dress was more European. So I walked up to them. I said, look, I have to go looking for my husband. I don't know where he is. Would you mind taking my daughter with you? And I just handed them the pram.
Just two strangers?
Just two strangers. They were very nice. They were from South Africa, very well spoken. And they said, oh, yes, no problem. We just exchanged the telephone numbers, and I handed over the pram, and the ladies took her to their house, wherever it was. And I boarded a taxi, and this taxi man, he saw this woman strangely dressed in a sari with a shawl over her shoulders. And I said, I want to go to this hospital. And he said, are you in trouble, ma'am? I said, yes, somewhat. What's the problem? I said, my husband has been assaulted, and he's been brought to the hospital. I have to go and look for him. And he said, oh, God, you need a solicitor. Because I didn't know the way things go there. For even any minor injury, people would sue you or do big things.
Yeah.
So I said, I don't know any solicitor. So he brought me to the hospital, and he said, look, you go and see your husband. I'll wait here for you. And that was the first act of kindness which I have never forgotten. And he waited for me. I went there. I came back. My husband said, why have you come? Where are the children? I said, I have to come and find you first. He said, no, go back home. So I came back into the taxi, and the man brought me to the solicitor's office. He stood me there, and he said, look, go in and you'll find the solicitor there. So I walked in. It was a big office, and all with wooden panels and all very cold looking. But that was the style in those days, all leather upholstery and
all dark colors.
Darkish colors. And so it was probably lunchtime. The girl was walking up to me to find out whether I had an appointment or not. And I said, no, I don't have any appointment. I think the solicitor himself waved out to the girl that sent her up. He was quite impressed with a stranger walking inside the door. So I went to his office, and these were his first words. Oh, what brought you to this God-forsaken country? And at that time I said, it must be my destiny. And so I think that word hung from there, the word destiny. So then he heard the story. He said, don't you worry, I'll look after you. And before I could get home, he was at my doorsteps there. And he saw my husband injured, and looking very weak and sort of pitiable. Anyway, then we dropped the case. We didn't go further. We didn't want the money or anything. So my husband said, no, forget it.
This was a case that you dropped.
We dropped the case, yes.
And this was the first of many incidents. Your daughter was kidnapped, the store was attacked several times, but you decided to stay on.
तो क्या करते?
वापस आ सकते थे.
वापस तो था कुछ नहीं यहाँ. We had burnt our boats here. So there was nothing to come back to. So we plodded on.
But the kind of color that you took to this cold, desolate, grey country, that really changed the way people thought.
I think we brought India to Ireland.
Yeah.
And I remember some of my friends, they used to say, Asha, you should be the Indian ambassador. Because the ambassadors who go there, they are pretty new.
Yeah.
It takes them a while to tune into the things. And we were there in the forefront because it was a high street shop and everybody saw you. Hundreds of people passed that street and they all came in and out. It got an instant recognition.
Yeah. I think that was also the time when the Beatles were suddenly coming up, so that Beatlemania.
The Beatles and the sitar and Ravi Shankar and all those things and the cheesecloth. We were just in time for everything.
At the right time, at the right place.
Right time, right place, yes. Yeah.
In fact, in a sense, there was commonality in our histories because there has been a struggle for freedom in Ireland. And you have also come from a background of this struggle for freedom.
Exactly, that's right.
So did that make a connection between you and the people?
Not in the beginning. What matters is the front you project in the beginning. But when they get to know you, then they can see better. And over the years, there was the only Indians who were there in Ireland at that time were either those who were studying medicine. There's a very famous college of surgeons.
Yeah.
And one of our presidents had also studied in I think it was Trinity College in Dublin. And so there were little connections all along. And because we were among the few there, easily recognized, so we were often invited to the gatherings. And I remember at one of the gathering, all the ministers were there. And at that time, the Prime Minister of Dublin was, God, the name eludes me now. And he said, oh, you're from India, you're very welcome in Ireland. And their sweet language, that really got to us.
Yeah. And the Irish language is completely different from English.
They're very sweet talkers, very witty, very humorous. So there are certain very lovable qualities that they have.
You know, the kind of connections you've always made in India and of course in Ireland, of these connections, we have one more friend of yours who would like to say something about you. Let's have a look.
I met her for the first time at the bank. She was part of my portfolio and she was around 81, 82 years old at that time. We normally witness people around that age and stage of life, taking things a little easy, taking a back seat, letting others take care of them. But Asha auntie was very different. Every time she would visit India, she would have a list of things to do. I have seen her resolve a lot of things in these 14 years, a lot of situations, a lot of ups and downs, but her positivity, her confidence, everything remained intact. And she would always say that, I've come to resolve and I'll resolve it. She happened to be a person with a lot of confidence, a lot of progressive thinking, a lot of dignity and compassion at the same time. I've learned a lot from her. I've learned to be a fighter. I've learned that our confidence, our willpower can resolve anything and everything. If the phrase, age is just a number, had a face, Asha auntie is that face for me.
Asha ji, throughout the program, we've been looking at your paintings.
Beautiful
paintings.
Thank you.
Tell me something about this.
Well, very late in my life, after we wound up our business, I used to enjoy a bit of amateurish painting. I was on a loose end. I had left the business that kept me so busy. I had time on hand. And I said, how will I utilize this time? And at that very time, I saw an advertisement in the newspaper saying that they are taking on new admissions to art college. So I decided to apply for it. And I was accepted, and I joined the art college late in life, quite late in life. And I remember I was dressed as usual with the colorful clothes. I had a bright yellow outfit with a green dupatta. And it was a hot summer day, and I think my face was literally hot and red with the heat. And this teacher, she said, "Oh, you look like an artist." So I told her, I said, "Look, I don't have a great portfolio. How come you have accepted me in this course?" And the thing she said was, "Asha, I think you will bring a change to the class." And I thought that was very forward thinking, which was not very Irish. It was, this lady was Swiss background. And I just wondered, how could I make a difference? But the very approach, when few different people sit on a place, each one has their own
space
and their own aura they bring to the place. And
so we see beautiful colors in, again, color in whatever you do. As we come to the end of the program, I want to ask you, it's been a long life, mashallah, it will be a much longer life.
Thank you.
What is it that you now look forward to?
Well, I look forward to good health.
Absolutely.
And maybe little more time in Ireland, if I can, because I've been here almost a year now, which is the longest I've stayed since I left India first. And I do miss the greenery, the beauty of that place, and the way of life, whatever it may be. You get accustomed to a certain way of life, and you don't want to leave it and let go of it completely.
So what we look forward to is the next book that you will write. And with this book, thank you so much for being on our program. I'm sure
thank you very much for having me here. I'm delighted, and you've been very good to me.
Thank you. It's been a lovely conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, I hope you enjoyed this program. Agli baar tak ke liye, namaskar.